Yeah, Lawrence Okoli and Eddie Hearn have got a bit of beef, haven't they? You know, they've got a bit of beef, haven't they? They've been taking little subliminal shots at each other, haven't they? It's mainly been Lawrence Okoli, to be honest.
So you are with Eddie Hearn, no?
At the moment.
At the moment.
Yeah.
So you only have one fight left?
I can't talk about it right now. When is this live?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then yeah, I'm with Eddie.
Yeah, did you hear that? You see, you can tell there's a bit of tension, you know, between Lawrence Okoli and Eddie Hearn. Basically, he's got one fight left on his contract, Lawrence Okoli. You know, and he's fucking putting up, you know, these kind of photos of Django saying, yeah, I can kind of relate to being treated like a slave, you know what I mean? So indirectly he's saying that Eddie Hearn is treating him like a slave. That's kind of what he's saying in here, Lawrence Okoli, you know, and he's writing tweets saying Eddie Hearn is a blank. You know what I mean? I fucking hate it when people do that, you know. It's so unmanly, you know what I mean? That's what women do. You know, when women write Facebook statuses saying, I can't believe what's just happened, I'm in such shock. You know, and then people say, what is it? What's happened? And they say, oh, I'll inbox you. You know what I mean? That's fucking women behavior. You know, Lawrence Okoli, he shouldn't be acting like that. If you got a problem with Eddie Hearn, just fucking say it, innit? Instead of saying Eddie Hearn is a blank. Eddie Hearn's a what? Just say it, man. You know, you're kind of moving a bit fruity with that kind of talk. You know what I mean? It's 2022 type behavior, innit? You know, where men aren't really acting like men. Eddie Hearn is a blank. He's a what? What is he? Just say it, man. You're 6'5". You're about 16 stone. You're black. You know, you probably got a few criminal convictions like Joshua. You know what I mean? Just be a man, innit? And just say what Eddie Hearn is instead of saying Eddie Hearn is a blank. What is he? That's 2022 fruity type behavior, innit? You know, it's like when Baby Ting put it on Lawrence Okoli, you know what I mean? You know, for saying that he would fuck up Dillian White. You know, and Lawrence Okoli, he kind of pussed it out a bit, didn't he? He looked a bit afraid, he looked a bit shocked, didn't he, of fucking Baby Ting. You know, nodding and saying, yep, you know what I mean? He was like a rabbit, wasn't he, caught in the headlights. So, you know, that's the kind of thing he's done again, you know, writing Eddie Hearn is a blank, you know, instead of just fucking coming out and saying what he is. What is he? You know, it's no good, is it? So, you can kind of tell that they've got a bit of tension, you know, a bit of fucking beef. So what's it about? I don't know. He's got like the slave mentality on here, Lawrence Okoli. But we don't know the ins and outs, do we? You know, we don't know what he's getting paid. We don't know what he means by I can relate to Django. I can relate to being treated like a slave. But why though? We don't know the ins and outs, do we? You know, Lawrence Okoli has been hanging around with that Francis Ngannou, hasn't he? So that Francis Ngannou has probably been talking to Lawrence Okoli about how he's treated like a slave by Dana White, and, you know, he's being paid peanuts and he's fucking getting treated like a slave. You know, because those UFC fighters, they get paid peanuts, don't they? And they're getting kicked in the face, they're getting fucked up. So the heavyweight world UFC champion, Francis Ngannou, he's probably getting paid about 200 grand a fight. You know, which is shit money in it. That's why he was desperate to fight Tyson Fury. You know, to get a career high payday. You know, probably more than he got in total combined from his other fights. So he was desperate for that Tyson Fury fight, wasn't he? But, you know, Dana White is not willing to allow him to do it. So Dana White treats these UFC fighters like slaves. Lawrence Okoli's been hanging around with Francis Ngannou. So he's now got that slave mentality, you know, and he thinks Eddie Hearn's a slave master. But Lawrence Okoli might be quite impressionable, you know what I mean? They say that you become a product of your environment. So if he's hanging around with him, and he's hanging around with Mayweather as well. You remember when Mayweather said that HBO gave him a slave contract? You know, it was something like $10 million for like 3 fights or whatever. So Mayweather, he was saying that he was treated like a slave, you know what I mean? So these are the kind of people who Lawrence Okoli's been talking to. And it's starting to rub off on him, and he's now got that slave mentality, and he thinks that fucking Eddie Hearn is a slave master. So he's saying Eddie Hearn is a blank, you know, and putting up that little Django photo, you know, saying he can relate to slavery and stuff like that, you know what I mean? You know, but some people are saying, why are you having a go at Eddie Hearn? Do you know what I mean? You used to work at McDonald's, and Eddie Hearn took you out of McDonald's and took you to become a world champion boxer. You know, earning good money and that, but that's not really the case, is it? Lawrence Okolie worked his way out of McDonald's himself, you know, and won a few little fancy medals, you know, in the amateurs. So he kind of got himself out of McDonald's, you know, into the Olympics and won a few little fancy medals. That's when Eddie Hearn snapped him up, you know, signed him up. Because he could see like world championship potential in him. So Eddie Hearn like snapped him up, didn't he? You know, people are saying, oh, Eddie Hearn, how can he be a slave master? He's been really good to Lawrence Okolie, you know, he gave him a little fancy watch. But that don't really mean anything. It's like Don King. He used to give women to Mike Tyson, you know, trying to lure him, trying to seduce him, you know, trying to fucking be all pally with him, you know, trying to bribe him with women, you know. So Mike Tyson stays with Don King. You know, that's what Don King used to do. He used to like give Mike Tyson women. He used to like send women to Mike Tyson, you know, trying to sweeten him up, trying to bribe him, you know, with these little sexual gifts. So he gave Mike Tyson a lot of pussy for his own selfish gain. So Mike Tyson would stay with him. So Don King can continue to make money off him. So it might have seemed like he was being nice and friendly, Don King, you know, giving Mike Tyson a lot of pussy. But he was doing it for his own gain, man. You know, it's like in Rocky 5, you know, when that little fake Don King was giving Tommy Morrison some pussy. You know, trying to sweeten him up, trying to bribe him, you know, to get him to leave Rocky and sign up with him. He was giving Tommy Morrison some pussy, wasn't he? You know, trying to bribe him away from Rocky. You know, and it worked, didn't it? So that could be the same with Eddie Hearn, giving Lawrence Okolie a fancy watch. You know, trying to bribe him to stick with him so he can continue to make money out of him. You know, Suge Knight. Snoop Dogg said in an interview that Suge Knight used to give him cars and houses and stuff like that, you know, trying to be all nice and friendly. But, you know, the cars and the houses that Suge Knight gave to Snoop Dogg, they were all in Suge Knight's name. So, you know, when Snoop Dogg left Death Row Records and Suge Knight and he went to Master P, you know, Suge Knight, he tried to like claim back the cars and the houses that he gave to Snoop Dogg. And he got them back, you know, because they were in Suge Knight's name. But, you know, Snoop Dogg, he wasn't really aware of the ins and outs of contracts and legalities and this and that. So when Suge Knight gave him houses and cars and this and that, little fancy watches, Snoop Dogg didn't know that they were in Suge Knight's name. He just thought Suge Knight was being nice and friendly. So, you know, when Lawrence Okolie fucks off Eddie Hearn after this last fight, you know, Eddie Hearn, he'll probably try and get that watch back, won't he? You know, he'll probably try and get it back. You know, it's probably in his name, Eddie Hearn. So giving him a fancy watch, you know, it might seem nice and friendly at first, but it's not necessarily, man. It could be a Suge Knight move, couldn't it? You know, it could be a Don King giving Mike Tyson a lot of pussy, trying to sweeten him up so he can continue to make money off him, type of thing. You know, you don't know, do you? So yeah, Lawrence Okolie, he'll probably fuck Eddie Hearn off, you know, after this last fight and go and sign up with Ben Schlong, you know, on Sky Sports. He'll probably do that, won't he? Because, like, you know, Ben Schlong, you know, he's got that Jewish money on it. He's chucking that Jewish money around, you know, that Rockefeller money around. He's from that lineage, you know, of the Rockefellers and the fucking Rothschilds. He's from that, innit? You know, the Jew Ben Schlong. So he's chucking money around at these fighters, you know, sweetening them up. So they're all leaving Eddie Hearn Lawrence Okolie, Liam Smith, you know, that fucking Joseph Parker. You know, Ben Schlong, he's got that Jewish money on it, that Rockefeller money, so he's able to entice these fighters, you know, to leave Eddie Hearn. And you know that Ben Schlong, he said to Lawrence Okolie that you're going to be the face of Sky Sports boxing. But I don't get that. I don't know why Sky Sports would have Lawrence Okolie, you know, as the face of boxing on their platform, because he's been criticised in the past, you know, for being a bit boring, you know, hogging and holding and all that. So I don't know what that is. I'm not sure what that's about, you know, making him the face of boxing. You know that Shannon Contney, you know, that horrible little bastard. She said in an interview that she overheard Eddie Hearn talking to a Sky Sports executive. And the Sky Sports executive said to Eddie Hearn, you've got to have one woman's fight on every single one of your shows in order to tick the equality pussy box and ensure that there's equality amongst men and women. So you've got to have a woman on every single one of your shows. You know, when Eddie Hearn was with Sky Sports. So I don't know if Sky Sports are doing that, you know, with Lawrence Okolie, putting him as the face, you know, like the token black man. Because I just don't see why he would be the face of Sky Sports boxing, you know, with his kind of negative, boring style. It's a bit of a mystery, innit, why they'd want him as the face of Sky Sports boxing. I don't know, but it'll be a good move for Lawrence Okolie, innit, because I've said before, like, you know, if I was a boxer and DAZN offered me a contract for a certain amount of money and Sky Sports offered me the exact same amount of money as DAZN to sign with them, I'd go with Sky Sports because, you know, football, that's like the main sport in England, innit? You know, and I used to work in a bar, you know, doing security and that, and they'd show football matches and the bar would be packed, you know, full of people watching football. You know, and then when the football finished, the boxing would be on and people had just sat there anyway drinking because they've been watching the football. So now the boxing's on, they can see these boxers who they've probably never seen before or never heard of. They're seeing them. Their profiles are going to get boosted, aren't they? And you know, Lawrence Okolie, you know, he wants to be a rapper, don't he? You know, he made that song, didn't he, called Chilling in Dubai with the Arabs. So, you know, Lawrence Okolie, he wants that life, don't he? He wants a load of money, a load of pussy, he wants a load of followers, he wants to be like Rick Ross, don't he? You know, he wants to live that kind of life, don't he? You know, like Rick Ross. So going to Sky Sports, you know, and having his profile boosted because Sky Sports is mainstream and they show the football matches and the boxing in the pub, you know, the pubs that are full up with people who are drunk. So Lawrence Okolie will get himself out there a lot more than being on DAZN, because non-boxing fans aren't going to fucking download DAZN, yeah, sign up, fill out a registration form, you know, set up a password, set up a direct debit, paying £8 a month. They're not going to do it, are they? So, you know, what they call it, dead zone. You know, it's not really the place to be, is it? Especially if you want to become like a big time celebrity rapper, you know, like Lawrence Okolie does, you know, trying to be like Rick Ross. So going to Sky is a good move, innit, for Lawrence Okolie. You know, Mayweather talking about his smart investments every minute. You know, Lawrence Okolie, he's been listening to that, hasn't he? And now he's trying to be like Mayweather. You know, when Mayweather said that he was given a slave contract, and you know, he's starting to rub off on Lawrence Okolie, innit? He's trying to talk like that, innit? Saying he can relate to Django and being treated like a slave and having a slave master, Eddie Hearn, you know, dictating this and that and fucking treating him like a little slave. He's trying to act like Mayweather, innit? Lawrence Okolie. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think Eddie Hearn is like a slave master? Do you know what I mean? What do you think? Do you think there's any truth to it? You know, Joe Gallagher, he said that Eddie Hearn's racist, didn't he? He said he was being racist towards Natasha Jonas. You know what I mean? You know, trying to treat her like a slave, trying to mistreat her, you know, because she's black. That's what he said, didn't he, Joe Gallagher, about Eddie Hearn. But, you know, Joe Gallagher, he has sex with dogs, don't he? So you can't really take him too seriously, can you, Joe Gallagher? You know, having sex with dogs and that. You know, you have to kind of dismiss whatever he says, don't you, really? So, you know, when he called Eddie Hearn racist, you know, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, don't you? You know, because it's coming from Joe Gallagher. But yeah, Sky Sports is probably the place to be, you know what I mean? And that's why Eddie Hearn's fighters are starting to leave him. You know, and Eddie Hearn's starting to feel it, innit? You can tell, you can kind of see like a change in his mood nowadays. You remember back in the days when he used to be all banterous, you know, with bent legs. You know, he used to be full of spirit, didn't he, Eddie Hearn? He was full of fucking enthusiasm and, you know, banter, and he seemed a lot happier, didn't he, back in the days. He was quite banterous. You know, he looked like he was enjoying life, you know, back in the days. But, you know, now he don't seem as happy, does he? You know, in his interviews, you can kind of sense that he's not as positive and optimistic as he was, and full of, you know, life, full of fucking enthusiasm. He doesn't seem as positive anymore. You know, he was really positive one day and really happy and, you know, full of life. You know, he looked like he was enjoying himself a lot, and, you know, he was getting involved in banter, and he was appearing as though he was living a really enjoyable life, and he loved being involved in the sport of boxing. But, you know, now there seems to be a bit of a change in his mood, you know. You know, his fighters are starting to leave him, aren't they? You know, and they're starting to go to bench long. And you can kind of sense that Eddie Hearn's mood is starting to become a bit negative, innit? He don't seem as happy as he was, you know, back in the days. And Eddie Hearn kind of hinted at that himself, like he said that, you know, Bob Arum and Fish Eyes with the big dent in his forehead. He said that those old promoters, yeah, they're kind of bitter, you know, because they've been in boxing for so long and they've been fucking mistreated, and they've had their fighters like leave them for other promoters, and, you know, they've been through it. So now they're older, they become bitter and hostile, you know, and they've got chips on their shoulders, and they're fucking really negative because they've been involved in boxing for so long. And Eddie Hearn said that he's not really affected like that because he's quite new, you know, to boxing. But he said if he was in boxing for as long as those guys, Bob Arum and Fish Eyes, he might become bitter himself, you know. And you can kind of see Eddie Hearn's getting a bit bitter now. He's starting to kind of turn into Fish Eyes and Bob Arum. You can kind of sense it. And it's still quite early days for Eddie Hearn. He hasn't really been in boxing for that long, especially compared to those guys, Bob Arum and Fish Eyes. And I can already sense a little change in Eddie Hearn's mentality. You know, he seems a bit more negative nowadays. So it's like a little self-predicted prophecy, innit? That one day he's going to become a bit bitter and negative and angry, you know, like Bob Arum and Fish Eyes. You know, it's starting to fucking come true, innit? You know, and he was like crying in an interview on it, you know, and you can say, well, that's because a boxer died. That's got nothing to do with being bitter about the sport of boxing. No, it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to sound horrible, but like, did you start crying when you heard that that boxer died? You didn't, did you? You don't care. We're not bothered. We don't know him. Sounds a bit harsh, but it's kind of true. Like, we don't know the boxer who died. So those tears from Eddie Hearn, I don't think they are to do with the boxer who died. I think it's to do with the fact that boxing's starting to get to him. You know, and he's starting to become negative. You know, like how he said that Fish Eyes and Bob Arum have become after spending years and years in a fucking horrible sport like boxing. That's what those tears are down to, aren't they? You know, and then he got all angry, you know, that little boxing fan. You see that there? That's the fucking bitterness starting to come out of Eddie Hearn. You know, the boxing business. You know, fighters leaving him and his fighters getting beaten. You know, promoters trying to like sabotage Eddie Hearn's shows. Eddie Hearn said that other promoters try and like sabotage his shows. Another promoter like told the boxing board that one of Eddie Hearn's boxers hadn't passed the COVID test. You know, that's what Eddie Hearn said. He said like a promoter got in touch with the boxing board saying that one of Eddie Hearn's fighters who had a fight coming up hadn't had their, you know, COVID tests and therefore they shouldn't be allowed to box on the show. That's what Eddie Hearn said. You know, and an accumulation of that is probably making Eddie Hearn bitter and twisted, you know, and negative. You know, like how he said Bob Arum and Fish Eyes have become after spending years and years in boxing. You know, it's starting to happen to him, innit? You know, the cracks are starting to show, aren't they? You know, a lot of his fighters leaving him. You know, and it kind of looks like Lawrence Okoli is heading that way as well. But what do you think? Do you think Eddie Hearn is treating Lawrence Okoli like a slave? To be honest with you, most promoters are like that, aren't they? They're all money grabbers. Like, you know, Fish Eyes, yeah? You know, his wife, she got sued, you know, by some builders, you know, for not paying them. Boxing promoter Frank Warren's ex-Vogue model wife is sued by builders for £1.2 million for failing to pay after they found bats in the attic of her mansion. So basically, you know, Fish Eyes and his wife, they were like renovating their house, yeah? But when the builders were like building, they found like some bats. And you know, bats, they're like a protected species. So like, you know, it's almost like bats have got squatters' rights. You know, if they move into a house or fly in or whatever, fly in the chimney, fly down the chimney, and they basically live there, they've basically got squatters' rights. You know, the bats. So the builders, they weren't allowed to like murder the bats. So they couldn't really do anything, you know, because the bats were there and the builders, they're not legally allowed to fuck around with bats as houses. Because it's like the bats have colonized, you know, Fish Eyes and his wife's house. So the builders, they couldn't really work because there were bats there, innit? So they said, oh, we can't fucking do it, innit? We can't really do anything about it. So Fish Eyes' wife, she tried to like not pay him. So the builders like sued him for £1.2 million and they got about £180,000, you know, in damages. So the gist of it is that Fish Eyes, you know, he's a bit snidey, isn't he? You know, that's why he got shot, you know, in the head. That's why he's got a big dent in his forehead, you know, and it's kind of rubbed off onto his wife and she's trying to rob some builders. So she's kind of like showing shades of Frank Warren, isn't she? You know, he's a bit snidey, isn't he? So that's just how it is, isn't it? You know what I mean? Fish Eyes, Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, Don King. You know, all of these people at the top of boxing, you know, the top of the pyramid. Some Illuminati type shit. They're all snidey, aren't they? So, you know what I mean? Lawrence Okoli is just trying to become famous, isn't he? He's trying to get that Rick Ross type profile. So he's going over to Sky Sports, you know, and Ben Schlong. You know, Ben Schlong's got that Jewish Rothschilds money to chuck around at Lawrence Okoli. And Liam Smith and a load of other fighters that are leaving Eddie Hearn and going over to Sky Sports. You know, he's got that Jewish money on him, Ben Schlong. So yeah, he'll get a few nice paydays, won't he, Lawrence Okoli? You know, and like being on Sky Sports, it'll boost his profile, you know, and help him in his rap career. Yeah, he's trying to be a rapper, innit, Lawrence Okoli. You know, he's trying to do it all, innit? You know, he's boxing, he's trying to be a rapper, you know, he's trying to do it all, innit? You know, like KSI. Yeah, you know, KSI. I'm starting to take to him a bit, you know. starting to take to him a bit more, you know. I've been watching a few more of his videos, you know, and I'm starting to kind of take to him a bit more. You know, he's doing well, isn't he? You know, he's got his YouTube channel, you know, that's got millions of subscribers. He's got another YouTube channel, you know, of the Sidemen, that's got millions of subscribers. You know, he's fucking boxing, you know, he's bringing out #1 hit songs, you know, rap songs. You know, he owns a vodka brand called XIX Vodka. Yeah, he's got a restaurant, you know, called Sides that he owns with those other Sidemen. So he's doing well in it, KSI. So I kind of rate him, you know, I'm starting to take to him a bit more, I think. Yeah, I'm starting to take to him a bit more. He's doing well, innit? But that'll do, you know. I think I'm gonna wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in again, yeah? Thanks for that.